John Woodhouse, who is the main organizer at the Westminster Cathedral for Interfaith Group. Someone who was introduced to me by our previous speaker last year, Catherine Muller. John has extensively worked on interfaith for a number of years, and I'm sure this evening we could take some wise words and from wisdom from John this evening, and take as well some knowledge which John has worked extensively with different faiths, I could say across the country and across the globe even. So a warm welcome please, a warm Ramadan tent welcome to John please. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you, Omar, for your very kind words. And Salam Alaikum. I'm very honored to be speaking here tonight. I've been following the Ramadan Tent on Facebook and looking forward to coming and joining with you. Thank you for this opportunity and for your hospitality. My theme tonight is dialogue, and I begin with a quote from Pope Francis, his document Evangelium Gaudii, which translated means the joy of the gospel. Evangelization also involves the path of dialogue. For the Church today, 3 areas of dialogue stand out where she needs to be present in order to promote full human development and to pursue the common good. Dialogue with states, dialogue with society, including dialogue with cultures and the sciences, and dialogue with other believers who are not part of the Catholic Church. In each case, the Church speaks from the light which faith offers, contributing her 2,000-year experience and keeping ever in mind the life and sufferings of human beings. This light transcends human reason, yet it can also prove meaningful and enriching to those who are not believers, and it stimulates reason to broaden its perspectives. I'm going to talk a little about myself, and then I will talk about the Westminster Cathedral Interfaith Group and Conversations for the Soul. I was born in England, but I lived in Johannesburg until the age of 25. I was educated at St. John's College, an Anglican school, but we learnt nothing about other faiths. I often say apartheid was a massive success in some ways, as real conversation between black and white never happened. It was not until I was in charge of the libraries in Soweto that I engaged in dialogue with educated librarians of African, mixed race and Asian background. I recall a conversation soon after I started. "Mr. Woodhouse, you're a good man." "I tried to be, Mr. Makudu." Note, we always called each other Mr. this or that, never first names. "You'll never understand us," she replied, "because we speak English to you, and you do not know what we say about you in our own language." Very true. Another life-changing moment. I was invited to tea with Mr. Pewa. He was the doyen of the library service and had served the libraries for many, many years. He was due to retire. I was presented with tea and condensed milk, which I somehow managed to drink. "How many rooms in this house, Mr. Pewa?" 4. "How many people live here?" 16. "Why?" "They have nowhere else to go." "But you are due to retire. You and your wife should be free to have comfort and live happily together." I went home and I told my mum I could no longer live in South Africa, where the elderly were not respected and people were homeless. So I came to London, and shortly before I married Liz, I became a Catholic. And this year we celebrate our ruby wedding. When I worked in Wandsworth Libraries, I worked with a good friend and a fine man called Zia. He tried very hard to convert me to Islam, but he didn't succeed. But we did have some wonderful conversations. He didn't want to know what I thought about the faith. He wanted to know what Rome taught. As a result, I realized I knew nothing about Islam, And so the Westminster Cathedral Interfaith Group was founded 10 years ago. We began by studying Islam with the wonderful Dr. Chris Hewer, and went on to consider the documents of the Church and Meeting God in Friend and Stranger, the Bishop's Conference document, worth a read. I've got a copy of it here. It's not a very long document. There's a lot of very good stuff in it, actually. We have visited mosques, temples and synagogues and had many fine speakers. This year we welcomed the first Imam to the Armed Forces, who answered our questions with great patience and care. In our group we are mostly Christians, but we welcome all. Tomorrow we will be discussing with our humanist friend, Jeremy Rodell, the question, can you be spiritual without being religious? That should be a very interesting conversation, I think. We meet in the Hensley Room next to Westminster Cathedral in Morpeth Terrace on most third Wednesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Later this year we will again meet our friend Rahid Salam, who is a Muslim youth worker. I have some flyers here with me if you're interested in coming along. You're most welcome. Once I had retired from the library, I was able to go to Heathrow College to study part-time for an MA in Christianity and Interreligious Relations. Here we studied the relationship between Christianity and other faiths, in particular Islam, Buddhism and Hinduism. I have always found that my many interfaith meetings have led to many contacts and indeed friendships. Last year I began going to Conversations for the Soul in the East End, firstly at the Christian Muslim Forum, and you had Julian Bond with you here last week, and then at Whitechapel Idea Store. The idea grew of starting these conversations in South London, and eventually 2 meetings were held at Streatham Islamic Centre, that's the converted fire station. 2 further meetings were held at the SGI Buddhist Namyo Penja Kyo in Bernays Grove in Brixton, which has the great advantage of being right near Brixton Station. The evening begins with very delicious refreshments, and then we set ground rules, e.g. confidentiality, no attempt to convert, listen to each other. We then go into one-to-one conversations. It's not a group event, it's actually one-to-ones, choosing a topic from this excellent booklet, which is actually produced by St. Ethelburgers in the city, called Conversations for the Soul. And it has a wide range of topics, from everything from food to violence and suffering. I would so much like to have more Muslims involved in these conversations. I wonder why we do not get more Muslim involvement. We're all busy people, but I have found that my own faith is deepened by having to explain my position, and I learn so much from the people I meet. It does require trust and understanding. I am hopeful that we will be able to set up these conversations at a mosque in South London later on this year. In the meantime, we're at the Buddhist Centre on Tuesday, September the 16th, and Thursday, November the 6th, from 7 to 8:30. The light refreshments are available from 6:45. Again, I've got some flyers here if you're interested to come along. I want to close with a bit more from Pope Francis, who has given us such great hope in the Catholic Church, and I think to the world as well. The popes have done so much to foster dialogue, and if your local Catholics are not dialoguing with you, you need to ask why this is not the priority for them that the popes have stressed. If you've not read this document, I recommend it. It's like your dad giving you the best advice, and it's easy to read. So here's a couple of paragraphs from it. The first is about interreligious dialogue. An attitude of openness in truth and in love must characterize the dialogue with the followers of non-Christian religions, in spite of various obstacles and difficulties, especially forms of fundamentalism on both sides. Interreligious dialogue is a necessary condition for peace in the world. I repeat that. Interreligious dialogue is a necessary condition for peace in the world. And so it is a duty for Christians as well as other religious communities. This dialogue is in first place a conversation about human existence, or simply, as the bishops of India have put it, a matter of being open to them, sharing their joys and sorrows. And now a section about the relationship with followers of Islam. Our relationship with the followers of Islam has taken on great importance, since they are now significantly present in many traditionally Christian countries where they can freely worship and become fully a part of society. We must never forget that they profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us they adore the one merciful God who will judge humanity on the last day. The sacred writings of Islam have retained some Christian teachings. Jesus and Mary received profound veneration, and it is admirable to see how Muslims, both young and old, men and women, make time for daily prayer and faithfully take part in religious services. Many of them also have a deep conviction that their life in its entirety is from God and for God. They also acknowledge the need to respond to God with an ethical commitment and with mercy towards those most in need. The Pope continues, in order to sustain dialogue with Islam, suitable training is essential for all involved, not only so that they can be solidly and joyfully grounded in their own identity, but so that they can also acknowledge the values of others, appreciate the concerns underlying their demands, and shed light on shared beliefs. We Christians should embrace with affection and respect Muslim immigrants to our countries, in the same way that we hope and ask to be received and respected in countries of Islamic tradition. Faced with disconcerting episodes of violent fundamentalism, our respect for true followers of Islam should lead us to avoid hateful generalizations, for authentic Islam and the proper reading of the Quran are opposed to every form of violence. Non-Christians, by God's gracious initiative, when they are faithful to their own consciences, can live justified by the grace of God, and thus be associated to the paschal mystery of Jesus Christ. As Christians, we can also benefit from these treasures from non-Christians, built up over many centuries, which can help us to better to live our own beliefs. I can't say anything better than what the Pope has said. That's the best thing I can offer you tonight. I wish you a very wonderful evening. It's great to be here. And I've got a copy of this book to present to you.